On the cold morning of March 12, 2011, at 8 a.m., Claire Dalton, manager of the local Lululemon store, arrived to open up as she did every day. But something was wrong. The store door was already ajar. Claire's first thought was carelessness from the night staff. When she stepped inside, the lights were off and merchandise lay scattered across the floor. A chilling scene. Fear gripped her when a faint groan echoed through the empty store. She called out, but no one answered clearly. Heart pounding. Claire rushed outside and flagged down the only nearby person, a man named Mark Ellis, waiting outside the neighboring Apple store, which wouldn't open for another 2 hours. Without knowing the situation, Mark agreed to escort Claire back inside. As they entered the back room, Mark's eyes caught a horrifying sight: a man's lifeless body sprawled face down in a pool of blood. Mark yelled for Claire to call the police immediately. Then, as he turned, he spotted another figure, this time a woman, unconscious and bound tightly with duct tape, but still breathing. Claire quickly called 911 again, panic rising as she described the nightmare unfolding. Police arrived within minutes, around 8:20 a.m., to discover a store-turned-crime scene of violent robbery or something far worse. The dead man was identified as Brian Lawson, and the woman was Sarah Green, both employees working the evening shift. They had been closing the store just hours before, around 10 p.m., when someone had brutally attacked them. Sarah was rushed to a nearby hospital, battered and barely conscious, with deep wounds across her arms, legs, and forehead. A striking 5-centimeter cut on her right thumb hinted at a desperate fight to survive. Brian's body was sent to the morgue, where the full horror was revealed: over 330 stab wounds. The ferocity suggested rage, a deeply personal attack. Just a simple robbery gone wrong. Investigators found a key piece of evidence: a bloody footprint from a size 46 Reebok sneaker, left behind by the attacker. Both Brian and Sarah had athletic backgrounds. Brian, 30, was known as a positive and outgoing man with a passion for sports and travel. Sarah's life, by contrast, had been far more complicated. Born into a poor family with 8 siblings, Sarah had overcome hardship through soccer. A star player in high school, she earned a scholarship to New York University. Her dream had been to join the U.S. women's national soccer team, but financial struggles forced her to abandon that dream. She had moved to Arlington, Virginia, juggling 2 jobs including her shift at Lululemon. Both lived in Arlington, yet their paths intersected tragically that night. The scene suggested a robbery, but the savage nature of the attack did not fit the usual pattern. Robbers rarely take the time to torture or kill unless provoked or driven by something far darker. Later, Sarah gave the first chilling account to police. 2 masked men entered the store, one attacking Brian, the other her. She described abuse with a clothes hanger and remembered the terrifying threats. But her story had inconsistencies. A medical report showed her injuries were far less severe than she claimed, and some wounds were self-inflicted. Surveillance footage near the crime scene showed Sarah alone behind the wheel of Brian's car, contradicting her claim that the attackers forced her to move it. Witnesses, including Sarah's coworkers, revealed a different side. Sarah had a history of theft, expelled from university for stealing. The bloody footprint matched a sneaker found in the store, one belonging to Sarah. The police began to suspect Sarah herself. The motive: jealousy, envy of Brian's stable life and future. When the trial came, evidence was overwhelming. Sarah pleaded guilty, claiming self-defense after Brian had attacked her first. But the jury was unconvinced, convicting her of first-degree murder. Sentenced to life without parole, Sarah remains behind bars. The brutal betrayal at the Lululemon store was not a robbery, but a deadly eruption of envy and violence, leaving one life stolen and another forever shattered. The morning after the brutal attack at the Lululemon store, the city of Arlington was stunned into silence. News of the savage murder of Jenna Murray, coupled with the horrifying survival of Brittany Norwood, rippled through the community like a dark storm. Detectives arrived early at the crime scene to comb through every detail, desperate to unravel the mystery behind this violent crime. The evidence told a gruesome story, not just of a robbery gone wrong, but of a personal vendetta that turned deadly. Jenna had suffered more than 300 wounds, far too many for a simple burglary. It was clear the attacker was driven by rage. In contrast, Brittany's injuries, though painful, were far less severe, but her story was riddled with inconsistencies. Brittany insisted that two masked men had stormed the store, one targeting Jenna, the other attacking her. But the physical evidence suggested otherwise. The duct tape binding Brittany's hands was self-applied, and the bloody footprints at the scene matched a shoe found inside the store, one that suspiciously belonged to Brittany herself. The detectives began to dig into Brittany's past. Raised in a struggling household with 8 siblings, Brittany had fought her way through adversity, using soccer to secure a scholarship at New York University. But even there, whispers of theft and dishonesty followed her. Former teammates described her as talented but troubled, with a history of kleptomania that eventually cost her her scholarship. Could jealousy have fueled this brutal attack? Did Brittany see Jenna's successful, happy life as something she could never have? When police showed Brittany the surveillance footage that caught her moving Jenna's car, the cracks in her story deepened. She claimed her attackers forced her to do it, but her fear seemed staged, her testimony rehearsed. In the tense hours of interrogation, Brittany's facade began to crumble. Her tears and sobs failed to convince the detectives, who could see the dark motives lurking beneath. By the time the trial began, months later, the weight of evidence was overwhelming. Brittany pled guilty to first-degree murder, claiming self-defense, but her version of events rang hollow. The jury saw through her lies and convicted her, sentencing her to life without parole. Yet the question haunted everyone: why did Brittany kill Jenna with such savage ferocity? The answer seemed to lie not in a simple robbery, but in envy, a desire to destroy the life Jenna had that Brittany could never claim. As Brittany Norwood sat behind bars, the investigation into the brutal murder of Jenna Murray continued to unfold. Detectives were still haunted by unanswered questions. How had Brittany managed to inflict such savage wounds on Jenna? What was the real trigger that transformed a workplace into a nightmare? Digging deeper into Jenna's life revealed a vibrant woman, beloved by friends and family. Born and raised in Houston, Jenna's passion for sports and travel defined her. She had studied in Asia, practiced yoga religiously, and embraced life with a fearless spirit. Her fiancé, Mark Reynolds, was devastated by her death, unable to understand who would want to hurt someone so kind-hearted. Despite their close circle, no one could point to a clear enemy. Yet, the ferocity of the attack suggested a deep, personal grudge. Meanwhile, Brittany's life unraveled piece by piece. Her history of theft wasn't just a high school mistake, it was a pattern of deception that extended into adulthood. Teammates and former coaches described her as a talented player, but also someone who struggled with honesty and control. More troubling was Brittany's fragile mental state. Friends spoke of mood swings and bursts of anger, hinting that beneath her tough exterior lay unresolved pain. Detectives pored over the physical evidence. The knife used in the attack, a Swiss Army blade, was traced back to items found in the Lululemon store itself. 5 different weapons had been used, including a hammer and a clothes hanger, all signs of a frenzied and prolonged assault. The missing cash from the safe was eventually discovered hidden in the store, casting further doubt on the robbery theory. This was no ordinary crime, it was calculated and personal. Brittany's courtroom demeanor shocked many. While she initially pleaded self-defense, her defense crumbled as witnesses testified to her dark side. The jury was shown the brutal extent of Jenna's injuries and Brittany's shifting stories. Ultimately, the jury found Brittany guilty, sentencing her to life without parole. But the truth about what pushed Brittany over the edge remained locked in the shadows. After Brittany Norwood's conviction, the community struggled to reconcile the violent truth with the faces they once trusted. But detectives weren't satisfied. Several loose ends and mysteries still lingered. Why had Brittany gone so far? And was there really no one else involved? Investigators revisited the crime scene and re-examined the evidence with fresh eyes. New forensic analysis revealed overlooked traces, small fibers, faint footprints, and subtle inconsistencies in Brittany's account. The tangled web began to suggest that Brittany's story, though dominant, might not be the full picture. Friends and co-workers described tensions between Brittany and Jenna in the months leading up to the attack. There had been whispers of jealousy and disputes over work performance, but nothing concrete. Some believed Brittany's kleptomania and unstable behavior had created friction, but no one expected it to erupt in such horrifying violence. The surviving victim's testimony had been crucial, yet questions remained. Brittany claimed she acted in self-defense after Jenna's provocation, but physical evidence contradicted her version. DNA under Jenna's fingernails confirmed a struggle. Jenna had fought back fiercely, leaving her mark on Brittany's body. Yet Brittany's injuries were minimal, raising suspicion about the true sequence of events. Outside the courtroom, Brittany's family grappled with disbelief and denial. Her brother Chris stood by her side, insisting she was a victim of circumstance and mental illness rather than malice. Meanwhile, Jenna's loved ones sought closure, demanding answers beyond the verdict. The investigation revealed a darker truth about the thin line between friendship and envy, trust and betrayal. The fatal night at Lululemon was a collision of hidden resentments, explosive emotions, and shattered dreams. As the dust settled from the trial, the shadow of doubt still hung over the case. Brittany Norwood was behind bars, convicted of a brutal murder, but some investigators couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't complete. The cold facts told one tale, but the unspoken whispers of what led to the deadly attack hinted at something more complex, something rooted in jealousy, desperation, and hidden secrets. Brittany's past came under intense scrutiny. Her history of kleptomania wasn't just a footnote, seemed to be the trigger for the entire nightmare. She had been expelled from New York University, lost her scholarship, and spiraled into a life marked by theft and instability. But what had pushed her over the edge? Why had she turned on Jenna Murray with such savage fury? Close friends painted 2 very different portraits. Jenna, the bright, charismatic star, with a passion for sports and life. Brittany, the struggling woman, haunted by poverty and envy. The two had worked side by side, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered, resentments that no one dared voice aloud. The brutal attack was more than a robbery gone wrong, it was personal. The 330 wounds on Jenna's body were a testament to rage and hatred, far exceeding what a simple theft would provoke. Investigators pieced together the horrific timeline. After closing time, Brittany confronted Jenna. The argument escalated, and the violence exploded. At trial, Brittany claimed self-defense, saying Jenna attacked first with cruel words and blows. But the evidence told a different story. Witnesses recalled Brittany's erratic behavior, her thefts, and her inability to control her impulses. The murder wasn't just a moment of madness, it was the tragic climax of a toxic relationship, spiraling into darkness. Despite the conviction, questions lingered in the community. Why had Brittany's jealousy turned so deadly? Was there a chance for redemption, or was this a chilling warning about how far envy can drive a person? The aftermath of Brittany's conviction rippled far beyond the courtroom. The Lululemon community, the friends and family of Jenna Murray, and the city of Arlington all struggled to come to terms with the tragedy. What began as a routine day ended in unimaginable violence, and the scars left behind were deep and lasting. Brittany's life behind bars was a far cry from the ambitions she once had. The woman who dreamed of soccer glory and a fresh start was now confined by cold walls and regret. Yet, even in prison, Brittany remained a puzzle, silent about her true motives, guarded in her confessions, and distant from those who tried to reach her. Meanwhile, Jenna's family sought justice and peace. They organized memorials and celebrated her love of life and sports. But the question of why Jenna had been targeted haunted them. The jealousy theory made sense to some, but others wondered if more secrets were buried beneath the surface. Law enforcement continued to monitor Brittany's behavior, searching for any hint of remorse or clues to fully understand the violent episode. The psychological evaluation revealed Brittany's complex mental state, a mixture of resentment, desperation, and fractured identity that had culminated in the horrific night at the Lululemon store. Community members also grappled with the dangers of unchecked envy and the hidden battles many face behind closed doors. The story of Jenna and Brittany became a somber reminder of how unresolved personal demons can explode with deadly consequences. Though Brittany was sentenced to life without parole, the wounds in Arlington's tight-knit community remained fresh. A dark shadow over a place where two lives once crossed in a moment of joy, now forever marked by tragedy. Months passed, but the case of Jenna Murray's murder and Brittany Norwood's betrayal continued to haunt Arlington. The community struggled to heal, but the story was far from over. Questions remained, and whispers about Brittany's true motives grew louder. In prison, Brittany's demeanor shifted. She became quieter, withdrawing from others, and often stared blankly at the walls. Psychologists working with her noted signs of deep remorse, but also a fierce pride that refused to fully break. Her silence about the exact reasons behind her rage left investigators and her victims' loved ones with an unsettling void. Meanwhile, Jenna's family sought closure. They started a foundation in her name to support women affected by violence, hoping to turn their grief into something meaningful. Jenna's passion for sports and life inspired the foundation's mission, reminding everyone that even in darkness, light could be found. Detectives reopened parts of the investigation, examining new leads and testimonies. They reviewed Brittany's background in greater detail, uncovering layers of jealousy, financial struggles, and unresolved anger. It became clear that Brittany's crime wasn't random, but rooted in a complex web of personal pain and envy. Community Members held mixed feelings. Some saw Brittany as a monster, others as a victim of circumstance. The lines between justice and compassion blurred as the story unfolded in unexpected ways. As Brittany faced the consequences of her actions, the question remained: could healing ever truly come from such devastation? For Jenna's memory and those left behind, it was a hope they clung to, even as the shadows of that night lingered on. The final chapter of this tragic story brought both resolution and lingering questions. Brittany Norwood remained behind bars, sentenced to life without parole, her actions forever altering lives and a community. But even as justice was served, the why of it all remained elusive. During the trial, Brittany never fully explained the deep-seated anger that drove her to such violence. Was it envy, a desperate cry born of poverty and jealousy, or something darker, something buried deep within her psyche? Experts speculated, but no one could reach a definitive answer. Meanwhile, Jenna Murray's legacy grew stronger. The foundation in her name helped hundreds of women find safety and strength, turning her tragic death into a beacon of hope. Her family's dedication ensured that her spirit lived on beyond the brutal night in the Lululemon store. The city of Arlington moved forward but carried the scars of that night. For many, the story was a grim reminder of how fragile trust and safety can be, even in the most ordinary places. It also highlighted the devastating consequences of hidden resentments and unchecked anger. In the end, the case became a cautionary tale, warning that beneath smiles and everyday routines can lurk dark emotions capable of destroying lives. Brittany's crime was a grim testament to this reality, a reminder that sometimes the greatest threats come not from strangers but from those closest to us.